the sound of white storks. I mean, I'm sure some of you knew that already, but they are returning to the UK in greater numbers and should be seen as an emblem for nature's recovery. That's according to conservationists who've been working to bring the long-vanished breeding bird back to the UK after hunting and habitat loss wiped them out. Isabella Tree is the author and conservationist who, with her husband, has been rewilding their Knepp estate in West Sussex, where a record 6 birds were born and have returned after an annual migration to Africa to nest. Isabella, this is quite a time, I imagine, for you and for those working in this field.
It's really, really exciting because I think it shows that, these storks that have been reared in England, released at Knepp, have migrated to Spain. Some haven't gone as far as Morocco, but some have come back to Knepp to nest. So it's completed the circle. They know they're British now, and they're picking up wild birds on the way. We may easily have more than 5. We had one bird that returned last year and nested successfully, brought up 3 chicks. And this year we have 5, 2 of whom are already nesting. So we may have more chicks from our migrants who've returned.
And what does it prove in terms of the habitat? Because there has to be certain things, doesn't there, to as I understand it, to make the conditions viable.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons we really wanted to reintroduce this bird, because it is such a good umbrella species, if you like, for conditions that can benefit other wildlife. It loves, it's mainly insect eating, so it loves masses of grasshoppers, earthworms, flies. It'll eat small mammals, occasionally a baby rabbit. So it has a very broad spectrum of what it eats, but it also loves to nest in tall trees. It loves clean wetlands. So it's really a kind of driver for restoration of river catchments.
And the bird itself, if you know nothing about it at all, what does it look like? How is it as a bird? And what do you think our relationship with the white storks has been? Just to give a sense of what the return could mean culturally, emotionally.
Oh, I mean, it's an amazing bird. It's standing from the ground. It's over 1 meter tall. Its wingspan is up to nearly 2 meters wide. It's a tall white bird, and when it's mature, it has this great red beak and red legs. We've had a very long relationship with it across the continent. I mean, from the Egyptians, ancient Egyptians onwards, we've kind of seen ourselves in this bird. And when you see them walking around, literally stalking about in the meadows, they look very sort of imperious, like sort of brigadiers, on a parade. And then when you see them flying, it's almost like being overshadowed by a pterodactyl. I mean, they're incredibly impressive birds, and because they like living in human habitations, they're relatively tame. So we hope will eventually start nesting on our roofs. Who knows? One day we might even have storks nesting on St Paul's Cathedral.
And it depends on how big I was going to say, it depends on how big your roof is if you really want that nesting, that pterodactyl on top
absolutely.
of it.
And there are ways you can mitigate that. But I mean, they can, after a few years, these nests can be up to a ton in weight. So they're fantastic, shaggy, gigantic things. But, people on the continent, you can see them everywhere, manage to live with these nests. And what we didn't really understand before the project began, we felt that they were a charismatic species that would, bring joy, and which they certainly have. I mean, tens of thousands of people come to see them, particularly now, just when the chicks are beginning to fledge. But what they also do is their nests are such big structures that they actually start encouraging other birds to nest in them. So you can have a stork nesting on the top, and in the kind of in the ground stairs, the downstairs basement, you can have wrens, blue tits, house sparrows, jackdaws, all these other birds benefiting from these structures the storks have made.
It must be quite a thing when they return, because you don't know if it's going to happen. And I don't know. It must be...
really is exciting. And I think, one of there's a huge attrition rate on migration. Sometimes with fledglings in their first year, 90% of them can be killed on migration. And that's because they hit cars or power lines. They haven't learned how to negotiate these tremendous obstacles that we put in their way. And also because of habitat loss, because they're losing places where they can feed up on their flight. A lot of them end up in landfill in Spain, and we have very conflicted feelings about landfill, because obviously we don't want our storks, chewing down plastic bags. But sometimes that's the only places where they're finding enough food.
Well, not with your work, I suppose, at the moment, which is a stark contrast to that, but important to hear the context of why it's been so tough, or one of the reasons, certainly. Isabella Tree, thank you.
28 minutes past 7 and